Farming simulation games are getting more and more traction lately, and I don't think this is a coincidence with the ongoing pandemic. These games offer an escape into a wholesome and happy place where you are surrounded by all kinds of people and you can keep yourself occupied with easy yet fulfilling tasks. Pioneers of Town is the latest entry to the Story of Seasons franchise, and they have made quite a few changes since the older games. Some good changes, and some not so good changes. Whether you're a veteran to the series or a newcomer that is just curious about this game, stick around as I will tell you everything you need to know about what this game brings to the table. If you are new to the channel, my name is Swrinny and I cover Japanese and anime styled games through reviews, guides and showcases. If you like what you see, help me out by hitting that like button and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more in the future. Developed by Marvelous and published by Xseed in the US and Marvelous in Europe, Pioneers of Town is the latest entry in the farming sim series that we were introduced to in 1997 under the name Harvest Moon. And even to this day I see a lot of people comparing this game to Harvest Moon or call it a clone or a ripoff. So before we get into the review, I want to take a minute to clear up this confusion once and for all in the simplest way possible. Bokujo Monogatari was made by the company that is now known as Marvelous. This game was a big success and in order to expand out to the Western world it had to be localized. So they teamed up with Natsume for this very reason, and with their combined efforts the game became wildly popular under the name Harvest Moon. So far so good, right? Well, stuff happened, and as a result, Marvelous now works with Xseed as a publisher in the West. The problem, however, is that Natsume fully owns the name Harvest Moon, while Marvelous owns the actual games and its assets. So Marvelous and Xseed had to think of a new name for their games in the West, which we now know as Story of Seasons. But at the same time, Natsume has partnered with another developer to create a new farming sim game series under the name Harvest Moon. So no, Story of Seasons is not a Harvest Moon clone. It is a continuation of the original Harvest Moon series created by Marvelous over 20 years ago, and all Harvest Moon games that have been released since 2014 are part of the new farming sim series developed by Natsume, who still uses its name. So with all of this in mind, you can see how confusing the situation can be for the fan base. But hey, that's enough about that for now, let's jump into the game. Town is a remote little place that was founded by your grandfather and his friends. You take over his farm and as usual, it's in a pretty bad shape. Now the cool thing about the farm this time around is that there is no farm. All you have is a big piece of land, a set of basic tools and a tent to sleep in. Your first couple of days will be spent clearing the land, tilling the fields and gathering materials for a house. And from that point on, you can slowly but steadily keep expanding your farm as the days pass. This is the first Story of Seasons game that has this level of customization, and I'm really glad they took this direction. But the farm is not the only place where you will be spending your time. Once you exit your farm, you will immediately arrive in Town. This is the place where you can buy your farm essentials, buy upgrades for your tools and mingle with the townsfolk, and if you play your cards right, even find love. Building relationships in this game is the complete opposite of how you should do it in real life. Instead of playing hard to get or give the other person some space, you meticulously stalk them and give them presents every single day until they finally cave in just to make it all stop. Jokes aside, the special romance scenes are brilliant and they flesh out the 10 potential love candidates pretty well. But sadly the same cannot be said for the other townsfolk because they barely have any story time for themselves in comparison. The dialogue outside of the romance events and cutscenes feels distant and low effort. It alternates between one-liners and reminding you that certain events are coming up, even from your boyfriends and girlfriends. This makes bonding with your characters tedious, and after reaching 10 hearts with the love candidates, I find myself not really visiting the town anymore unless I really need an item for my farm. You're supposed to be part of the community, but I really don't feel like I do. Now both gay romance and infidelity are supported by the way, so you are free to date everyone at the same time without suffering any consequences. You can only get married to one person though, so choose wisely. The day starts when you wake up in the morning. From this point you have 15 to 20 real life minutes before the day ends, so you want to make these count. Your daily activities include working the fields, taking care of your animals and then working towards one of the goals that you set for yourself. Do you want to cook a delicious meal that includes fish? Go fishing. Do you want iron ore for your next tool upgrade? Go mining. How you spend your time is entirely up to you and there is always something to pursue, and that is precisely the beauty of this game. The only limitation you have is your stamina. When you start out you don't have that much and it depletes pretty quickly, but as you hone your different skills you will use less stamina for your tasks and you will also be able to permanently increase it up to 20 hearts. The game also does a good job by making repetitive tasks a lot less repetitive. Upgrading your axe for instance allows you to deforest a large zone with just a few swings. By creating sprinklers you don't have to manually water your plants anymore, and by building a feeding machine you can automatically distribute food to your farm animals. All this is made possible via the new crafting system. So the crafting system is simultaneously the best and the worst feature in this game. When you chop wood, clear weeds or mine rocks you get basic materials. Through crafting you can turn these materials into building materials, and with those you can build your house, upgrade your tools and create items and decorations for your farm. In other words, your daily farm maintenance provides you with both the experience needed to unlock various recipes and the materials you need to create these items. And honestly, I love this design. But what I don't love is how you create the building materials, which is through makers. These machines are my bane. I mean, I get the idea. You plop in an item, you wait a couple of minutes and you've got yourself some building materials. But you need multiple of these and they must be placed on your farmland. They take up a lot of space, they sound awful. And frankly, I don't even like the look of them. The only reason you need multiple of these is because you can only add one item at a time. You also need to have the materials in your inventory, which means that you need to sacrifice your already limited inventory space to carry these things around, or you need to set up extra storage boxes, but that takes up even more space on your farm. Early on my farm ended up looking like this and I absolutely hated it. I'm not sure why they didn't just expand on the makers from Trio of Towns, because these acted more like facilities and had way better functionality than these things we have now. I did find a workaround for this though. Around 35 hours into the game I unlocked a magical field where it's always one specific season, and I moved my most important makers to that area. I can warp there instantly from near my house and my farm looks a lot cleaner and more peaceful now. It does mean that I can't use the field for what it's intended for though, which is the season bound crops and trees. Speaking of seasons, as the name of this game implies, you go through all 4 of them. Each of the seasons has 28 days and 2 special events, which are either little minigames or short cutscenes. The minigames are fun, but the cutscenes feel kind of bland. This gets better once you can bring a boyfriend or girlfriend along, but it will probably take 2 full seasons before you even reach that level of friendship. In the older games you had more events, and I'm not sure why they've toned this down to be honest, because it was such a great tool to interact with the villagers more often. The different seasons affect your farm life as well. Specific farm animals can spawn that you can tame, and depending on the season you have a different variety of crops, fruits and flowers that you can grow. The item descriptions in game do a terrific job of giving you exactly the information you need, and the shop inventory automatically changes with each season so you do not accidentally buy items that you cannot use. So while you do spend your time in any way you want, there are 2 overarching storylines that you go through as well. The first is that you help the mayor make the town more attractive to tourists. You do this by completing job requests where you deliver specific materials, and the changes made by this are then reflected in the town, whether it's improving existing buildings or adding modern benches or streetlights. The second is that you start meeting spirits and sprites as you improve your farm. Over time, multiple cutscenes about a mysterious girl unlock, and gradually you learn more about her and who she is. At the same time, the little sprites you find during your tasks will start to work for you. That's right boys, slavery is back and it's more lucrative than ever. Back in Friends of Mineral Town you enslave naive elves by giving them large bags of cocaine every day, and they will come to your farm and help you with your daily tasks. In Pioneers of Olive Town it's actually worse. You aggressively wake up these sleeping sprites by destroying their homes, then you bring them to the taskmaster who forces them to gather materials for you. Any pay they earn is yours to keep as well in the form of spirit coins, and you can exchange these for even more stuff. I really struggled with inventory space for this part though, because they give you so many different materials that I often had to leave stuff on the ground or visit multiple times. Now there are quite a few more changes and interesting features, but in order to not overload you with information, I'm just going to talk about the 5 most important ones, starting with mining. So mining is back, but instead of just 5 mining nodes or a 255 floor dungeon straight from hell, you now have 3 separate mining caves. Each of these have a different depth, type of ores, gems and difficulty. What do I mean with difficulty, you ask? Well, I mean these bad boys. These punk rock moles are out to get you, and they drain your stamina to prevent you from reaching the bottom. They start off pretty innocent, but the deeper you go, the crazier they get. I really like this change though. It makes gathering ores a lot more engaging and provides a fun little challenge. The buildings for your farm animals can now house 5 creatures from the very start, and you can build more of them as long as you have the space. You can also unlock bigger versions of these buildings that increase the capacity to 10 animals and add the option for breeding. I love how you can get a more animal oriented farm from the start, and if you want to relocate animals, you can easily do this with just a few button presses. Speaking of animals, you can not only spot creatures but also take pictures of them. Which animals spawn depend on the season and the time of day, and if you donate the pictures you took to the museum, you can buy little sculptures to decorate your home. Then there's also a lot more character customization. From the start you can select a number of faces, hairstyles and outfits. A few hours into the game, however, you unlock a boutique where you can change it up and unlock even more variants. New clothing can be made from the wool that you get from your own farm animals, which I really like. And finally, there is online multiplayer. Well, a little bit, I guess. You can talk to Laura at the port to upload your character and any pictures you took. Your character's avatar now has a possibility to visit other players as a tourist. Any pictures you upload can be shown to other players during their loading screens. All you need for this is an internet connection. The Nintendo Switch Online subscription is not needed. So I usually don't have a reason to talk about performance, but this game does have an issue with loading times and frame rate drops, and honestly it feels pretty bad. This already happens the moment you leave your house and start crossing your farm, and it just keeps on going as you explore more of it. Now, I have been informed that a patch will be available on launch that will improve this, but if it helps enough remains to be seen. Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olivetown feels like an experiment for something bigger. Marvelous knows what works in farming sim games, and with more and more competitors on the market, it looks like they wanted to bring us one big complete experience, but they weren't exactly sure how. They seem to have taken notes from Stardew Valley with the town development, but it's so easy and has so little impact that it's quickly forgotten. They seem to have taken notes from Animal Crossing by introducing a museum and visiting other players, but the display looks like this. And the online features are so limited they may as well not be there. You can now walk your dog, but the poor thing gets stuck everywhere. You can now have a mount, but there is nowhere to really take it and you have to jump off to do anything at all, even to simply talk to villagers. What I'm trying to get at is that sometimes less is more. In my 70 hours of playtime, I ended up ignoring the things I mentioned just now, and it's fine. These additions don't add to the experience at all, and just like in the older games, the greatness of Story of Seasons lies in growing your crops, taking care of your animals and building relationships. The crafting system, shaping your farm and character customization are great additions. And going forward, I really hope that I improve these things first instead of adding new stuff. With that said, this has been my favorite Story of Seasons game so far, and even after the 70 hours I still have plenty of things I want to try out. If you are a fan of the series, I think you can look past the additional fluff and find the wholesome and fun experience that you are looking for. If you are new to the series and want to try it out, try to stick to the core features of the game and don't let yourself get overwhelmed by all the options. So now you know my opinion, but I am also curious to hear about yours. What are your impressions of this game so far, and does it look like something you would enjoy? Also, if you have any additional questions about the game, don't hesitate to ask me in the comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And on that note, I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time.